Welcome to this week's edition of the Central NewsWatch Weekend Sports Report. I'm your host, Ryan Rogers, and we'll have scores and highlights of high school and college sports around the Kittitas Valley, starting with today's game here at Tomlinson Stadium between the Central Washington Wildcats and the Humboldt State Lumberjacks.
Homecoming weekend at Central Washington University with the Central Washington Wildcats hosting the Humboldt State Lumberjacks. The Wildcats came into today's game having lost 2 in a row, looking to get back on track. With a win today, they could have been in a game in first place in the GNAC, but it was a rough one for the Wildcats. First quarter, Humboldt Sage Birdmeister on the shovel pass from Robert Weber finds the end zone from 12 yards out, 7-zip Jacks. Later in the first, Humboldt threatening again when Max McIntosh comes up with a huge interception at the central 2-yard line. Then on the ensuing drive, Justin Lane in action finds Jesse Zalt, and Jesse takes care of the rest. He goes 41 yards all the way down to the Humboldt State 24-yard line, gets the Wildcats in business in the first quarter. And then later in the drive, Justin on a 12-yard run leads to a Wildcat field goal, cutting the lead to 7-3. But the Jacks would answer as Jaquan Gardner scores on a 5-yard touchdown, making it 14-3. Humboldt knocking on the door again. Gardner with his second TD, this time from just 2 yards out. Central down 21-3. Wildcats respond on the ensuing drive. Lane goes to Kent McKinney for 14 yards and a first down. And then later in the drive, Lane scrambles, goes deep, and finds Zalk once again, this time inside the 10-yard line. And Zalk takes it into the end zone for the touchdown, 61 yards. Wildcats back in the ball game, down just 21-10, but it didn't last. Humboldt State on the next drive goes right down the field. Weber on the read option finds the end zone for the touchdown, 28-10 Humboldt at the half. Third quarter, Wildcats trying to get back in the game, going for it on fourth down, but Justin Lane's pass picked off by Chris Hannibal, and he's going to dodge some tacklers and then take it all the way, 76 yards, touchdown for Humboldt State. They're up 35-10. Fourth quarter, Wildcats down 42-10, not giving up. Lane connects with Justin Peterson for 20 yards in the first down. And then later in the drive, Wildcats have it at the 10-yard line. Lane rolling out, throws to the end zone, finds Kyle Self for the touchdown, but too little too late. Disappointing homecoming game for Central. They lose 42-17.
Tough loss today for the Wildcats. It's their third loss in a row. They now fall to 3-5 on the year. They are off next week, and they will be at Simon Fraser in 2 weeks. And their final game of the season will be at home on November 14th at 12 o'clock against Dixie State. Let's go to the scoreboard now for Central Washington Athletics for soccer, rugby, and volleyball.
Today in women's soccer, Central defeated Simon Fraser 5-2. The Wildcats improved to 6-8-1 on the year and 4-5-1 in the GNAC. Central now has a 3-game unbeaten streak. On to women's rugby now. The Wildcats defeated BYU in convincing fashion, 40-17 today. They'll be back in action tomorrow against Western Washington. In volleyball tonight, the Central Washington Wildcats beat Western in 4 games to move into a 3-way tie for first in the GNAC with both Western and Alaska Anchorage.
We're going to take a quick break. Here's a look at the upcoming schedule for Central Washington Athletics. Welcome back. Last night in high school football in the Kittitas Valley, the Ellensburg Bulldogs were down in Yakima to take on the East Valley Red Devils. Here's the highlights of that game.
At Earl Barton Field in Yakima, the East Valley Red Devils looking to upset the unbeaten Ellensburg Bulldogs. Not going to happen. Donnie Ellersick fakes the dive. Off to the races, 32 yards. Touchdown Ellensburg. They're up 7-0. Bulldogs back on the attack. Ellersick passes to Xander Orihudos, speeding down the middle all the way to the end zone. 17-zip Ellensburg after 1. Red Devils trying to come back. Jeremy Bade picks up some good yardage on this play for a first down, but the drive stalls. No points for the Red Devils. Bulldogs strike again. Ellersick, this time to Seth Walker. He goes 27 yards for the touchdown. 24-0 Ellensburg. They make themselves at home, away from home. Final score, Bulldogs 58, Red Devils nothing.
With the win last night, the Bulldogs are now 8-0 on the season, 7-0 in conference play, and remain in first place in the CWAC. They'll be on the road again next week to take on Ephrata, who are 4-4 on the season. Another high school football action in the Kittitas Valley. The Cleon Warriors were down in Highland last night to take on the Scotties. The Warriors went into that game with just one win. The Scotties 0-7. Here's the highlights of that game.
Cleon Warriors looking to get their second win of the year last night in Cowiche, facing the winless Highland Scotties. Scotties appear to be recovering a fumble early, but Cleon ends up with the ball, and they dodge a bullet. Warriors ball on the Highland 2. QB Dalton Hawk keeps it, scores the touchdown, 7-0 Cleon. Highland trying to answer. Brett Barnes throws to Jose Cerna. He moves the chains, but the Warriors keep the Scotties out of the end zone. No points for Highland. Warriors get it back and strike again. Hawk calls his own number once again, this time for his second touchdown of the night. 14-zip Cleon, and the Warriors pick up their second win of the year, 54-21.
With the win last night, the Warriors are now 2-6 on the year. They'll be at home against Granger on Friday night. And another high school football action in the Kittitas Valley last night. The Kittitas Coyotes were at Lake Roosevelt last night, and they lost 28-12. They'll be at White Swan next week. Let's take another quick break. Here's a look at the upcoming schedule for high school sports in the Kittitas Valley. Welcome back. Before we go for the week, we're going to tell you a little bit about next week's weekend sports report. We'll be at Nicholson Pavilion for the Central Volleyball game against Western Oregon. We'll also have rugby highlights against Oregon State and hopefully some high school football highlights as well. Until then, that's going to be all for this week's weekend sports report. This coming Thursday, we'll have our second Central NewsWatch newscast of the fall quarter. And until then, we thank you for watching. I'm Ryan Rogers. Good night from Ellensburg.